This video is quite different from the rest of the chess videos that I have posted online because the game that I am going to show you today is one of my games I recently played during a FIDE rated tournament here in London, UK, and it happened on this 18th and 19th of October 2025. The event is a classical or a standard rated tournament with time control of 60 minutes plus 30 seconds time increment for each players. Now, I would like to emphasize that this specific game lasted for more than 4 hours, perhaps 5 hours. We started playing 12:30, and well, let's round it off to 1ish, and we finished at around 5 in the afternoon. It was really a long and difficult battle of chess, not to mention a very tiring one. Now, I remember saying to myself after the game that I'm not going to play anymore. I just want to go home and go to sleep. But I still have one game left, and it will be a deciding factor, and it played an important role in the tournament because it will help decide who will win the first prize. Therefore, I stayed and played in the last round. Now, I could not imagine myself playing in the 19th century with a similar tournament because during those years, players often played more hours than this, and mostly some of them, or mostly players during that time played more than 8 hours, and if they cannot play or finish the game within those specified time, they will just seal it off and affix their signature on the paper and then continue again tomorrow or in the next few days or in the next week with the same position. And I cannot imagine myself, or I cannot see myself doing exactly that because it's really tiring. And as a matter of fact, in this 2 days event, I was like running on adrenaline close to exhaustion. I was really, really tired because I have to, before the tournament, I have to prepare for my opening repertoire for black and white, and I was not expecting any outside help at all, and therefore I have to do it myself and practice all by myself. And this game is probably one of the worst, or if not my worst game ever played in a FIDE tournament. But it helps me learn a lot of lesson from this loss because in this game my opponent just dominate the board starting from the very beginning, and what I have learned is that never to underestimate your opponent regardless if they're young or they're old. Most of the players who come and join the tournament wanted to win. And the second one will be never to stop looking for a counter attack. If you stop counter attacking your opponent, then it will definitely cost you the game, just like what happened to this one. Because in this game, I just keep on defending myself. I don't know why, but yeah, that's what happened. And when I got home, I checked with our friendly neighborhood stockfish, and the stockfish showed me some variation of the position, and it showed me that I was winning at some point. Well, not just winning, but I am really winning in a position. However, I saw those moves during the actual game. Unfortunately, I did not play them because I was reluctant and I was doubting myself. And, well, to cut it short, I did not play the move which Stockfish recommends, and I saw it now and I should have played it. But anyway, and let's stop yapping and let's watch the game and see what it's all about. And my opponent is playing white, and he opens up with 1 c4, and I replied with knight f6, knight c3, pawn g6, g3, bishop g7, bishop g2, and we have the English opening on the board. And in this position, white can transpose the opening into a Catalan if he pushes the pawn to d4. Now I replied with c6, transposing also myself in a similar position to a Slav defense, which is one of my favorite defenses against a queen side opening. Now the game continued with knight f3. I played d6 and white castle, and I also castled short, and this time white played the move d4, which it now looks like that the opening is a Catalan system. This is a very complex opening as well, a Catalan. And they call one of the, if I can remember correctly, is a young grandmaster who used to play this. They called them the Catalan God. I forgot his name. I think it's sort of like a European last name. Lasavic, yeah, is a Catalan God, as well as Deng Loren is also a Catalan God. Now, the game continued with me pushing the pawn to d5, and my opponent played rook e1, intending to push the pawn to e4. Therefore, I played bishop f5, preventing the move, and my opponent played queen b3, attacking the pawn on b7, which was left attended when I played the move bishop f5. Now, the continuation for this one, actually, it doesn't need Stockfish to tell you that you need to play, or I need to play queen b6 like this. Now, the only way I did not play this move, because like I said, my opponent is young and probably would not follow the correct continuation if I play queen b6. Therefore, that's the reason, one of the reason why I did not play the move, and I played b6 instead. Now the game continued with bishop f4. I took the pawn, queen captured back, bishop attacks the queen, queen goes to the edge of the board, which I believe is a mistake. So I capitalize on it according to my assessment, but Stockfish disagrees. Stockfish brand this move as a mistake, and I don't know what type of engine you are using, but my friendly neighborhood Stockfish says that that move is a mistake. And my opponent played rook a to d1. I played knight d5, knight e5. I attacked the queen with my pawn. Queen retreats, captured the bishop, pawn takes knight, bishop takes knight from its outpost, and my opponent captured back with d takes e5. Game continue with pawn a6. Now, I played pawn a6 to prevent the obvious threat of knight takes b5. Now, knight takes b5, if I captured it back with a pawn and my rook is hanging because this diagonal is now open and the bishop can see it. That is why I played the move a6 instead, preventing the tactical motif of knight takes b5. Now my opponent played knight e4 and I played queen c7. Knight make an outpost on c5. I move the rook up, and my opponent also played rook d3. I attack the knight, queen defends, and I played e6. Now before playing a6, I saw this move, honestly, the bishop f5, which is the best move according to my engine Stockfish. Now, the reason why I said according to my engine, because I'm using a very old engine, Stockfish, and I also have another engine, but it's more, or let's say it's weaker than my Stockfish engine. But this is what Stockfish recommends to play this move. Unfortunately, the reason why I did not play this move because I saw this pawn e4. Therefore, I have to move my bishop back to e6. Now, in this position, Stockfish really recommends the move f5. Now, if f5 happens, then I can, oops, sorry. If f5 happens, then I can move the bishop now to c4, which the bishop lives to fight another day. Unfortunately, now in that position, I am winning. However, my assessment of the position is quite different from Stockfish, because if I move my bishop here to e6, which is a good square for the bishop in this position, what if the knight captured on e6? Then I will capture back with a pawn, definitely, because I will be losing material if I don't do so. Then it will only create a weakness on my king side, which my opponent will later on exploit easily, because this pawn on e6 is really weak, and it's a pawn island, and it was stuck up against another pawn. Now the only way to defend this is to move the king up to f7 to defend it, and it's not that good if it's a lone king that will defend a position like this. And I'm sure some of my pieces can help out, but it will be outnumbered, and these weaknesses will fall soon. Therefore, that is why during my evaluation I did not play that move, because, well, like I said, I underestimated my opponent. Maybe he will capture the bishop, but the best move for that purpose will be pawn f5, and the bishop will live. So according to my evaluation, it's not going to happen. Therefore, I played a different move, which is a very bad one, e6, and my Stockfish is calling this a move a blunder. And the game continue with rook doubling up on the d file. So bishop moves back to e8. Now bishop e8 is also a blunder according to my Stockfish, because my Stockfish recommend that the bishop will be posted here to c8 instead, preparing for the attack or the pawn push to f5. Now Stockfish did not really agree on this move, and like I said, they branded it as a blunder. Now the game continue with pawn protecting the knight. I attack the pawn that protects it, and another pawn protection. Pawn takes pawn, and knight a6. And in this position, my stockfish evaluated it as a change or a shift of the tide, meaning I have recovered from my losing position. And the game continue with knight e4, and I captured the pawn on b5, which normal people would do, but Stockfish again disliked the move, and it brands it as a blunder. Because you see, I've seen this move as well. I was planning to attack the knight with this move, f5, but I was really reluctant, and according to my evaluation on the position, that if I played this move, this pawn on e6 will become weak. As soon as the pawn captures the f5 pawn, like in passing or en passant, or I can't pronounce the French word, like let's say if I'll push this, right, like this one attacks the knight, and that pawn on f5 can be captured with this pawn, like en passant, French word I cannot pronounce. Many words I can't pronounce. So that is why I was reluctant. And this pawn again in e6 will become weak. So I did not like that during my initial evaluation of the position, my personal evaluation. Therefore, I did not play the move. And let's say, for example, if I played again f5, and what if the knight comes here? Stockfish showed me that I can capture the knight this time with white captured back with the pawn, and this time the position is shifting to my favor. So, well, I did not really anticipate that because I was thinking of the en passant move. That's why I did not play the pawn f5. Therefore, I captured the pawn on b5, which is a blunder again. And the game continue with knight check my king. I moved up, rook attacks and threatens mate in one. I defended. Queen moves to b2, which is also a mistake according to Stockfish. And in this position, Stockfish changed its evaluation from worst to very good. So I am now winning in this position according to him. Now, game continue with e3, or according to Stockfish, not him. So I push the pawn to b4, which is one of the top engine move, and my opponent doubled up on the b file, and I overprotect the pawn on b5, which I believe will give me the winning chances. Unfortunately, I believe that the best move was this one, pawn c5, opening up the diagonal for my bishop so that it will become active in the future. But I honestly don't know why I did not make that move, because I can protect this pawn with this pawn, but I worry about the bishop or the knight capturing my outpost knight on d5. That is why I did not push this pawn in order to protect or to add additional protection to this knight, because, well, we all requires additional protection, and giving enough protection is quite good, so to speak. So the game continued again with bishop e4. I played knight c3, and rook attacks my knight, and like I said, in this position I am already winning according to my stockfish. The knight takes e4, knight takes knight, and h6. Now this move is also again another mistake. My stockfish prefers h5, not h6, but I was just preventing the knight to hop to g5. That is why I moved the h6 instead. Now the game continue with king h1, rook c7. Now this is another blunder according to stockfish. Rook c7. I should have played c5. Now c5 is already plus something for me, or minus something for me, because it's definitely winning. Now I saw this move as well, but when I evaluated it, I was worried that rook will take the pawn here. Let's say, for example, we'll play it so that you will see. Now I was worried because this pawn is attacked twice, like with this knight and the rook. So it was attacked twice. But if the rook captures this, now the continuation will be bishop pinning the knight. Now the rook goes back there to protect the knight, and the bishop captures and free my position with my initial evaluation of a winning position, relying mostly on the b pawn. Now it's definitely winning this time, but I don't know why I was so reluctant and did not play the move. And well, it leads to it cost me the game, so to speak. So therefore, let's go back to knight c5 instead. And then after playing rook c7, then my opponent played knight c5, and I played bishop d7, trying to develop and create a counterplay and maneuver my bishop from this diagonal to here, adding another protection, and maybe I can create trouble on the queen side with my bishop maneuver. But the game continued, and it did not happen that way. And my opponent played rook g3. I continued with rook a8, thinking that I will have chances on the a open file. And my opponent attacks now the pawn and pushes its own to f5, and I attack the knight, which is a very wrong idea, and according to my stockfish, it's another blunder. Well, it's really difficult to assess in the position, honestly, because I was relying that if pawn takes this, I can capture it with this one. Now the knight has to go somewhere else, and it won't cost me, or it won't create trouble for me, because if the knight moves, then I can move forward now the pawn. So let's say like the knight moves there, then I can push this pawn, right? So that was my initial thinking, but that didn't happen. So my evaluation was really wrong. Now the game continued with queen d4. In this position, white has a threat of knight, or sacrificing the knight and take the pawn on e6. losing my queen. But I did not worry about that sacrifice because my next move was b3, assessing the position that if the knight captures this and I can take it with my bishop, and then queen takes queen, and now I can give the check here, protecting this pawn at the same time this pawn, and the next move will be rook a7, protecting the other rook, and I'm still winning if that will be the case. Unfortunately, that did not happen again. So I evaluated the position in a different way than Stockfish, therefore it cost me the game. So my opponent played pawn takes pawn, and I took the knight, and my opponent played again pawn takes pawn. Now, this is already losing. The position is already losing for me, but there is still one good chance that I can survive if the king moves down here. But I did not play that move because I was already hopeless in the position. I did not evaluate properly the position because it requires, if you look at it, it will require at least 3 moves to checkmate my king, and in that span of time I can still get away with it. Look, it requires the queen to maneuver on this side of the board, not necessarily this square, but on this side of the board, and this rook also needs to be in this side of the board. Now, during that span of time I can create a lot of counterplays already, but like I said, it didn't go as planned because I evaluated the position wrongly and I took the pawn instead. That leads to my early retirement of the game. So the follow-up was queen f4 check, and I moved here, and queen check again, and after making the move queen e8, I resigned because obviously it's a checkmate next move. So that is the game I played and lost during the recent FIDE rated tournament last October 19, 2025. And I hope you enjoyed it, and dinhin lang tataman hantod susunod.